buffet, 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 yeah. Pillow talk buffet, 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 pillow talk buffet, 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 yeah. Pillow talk buffet, 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 pillow talk buffet, pillow talk buffet. I'm Jessica,
I'm Clara.
and you are listening to
The
Pillow Talk Buffet. So, you sent me this post on Instagram, and I want to read it because I think it'll introduce the conversation today well. So, Create the Love, this is the name of the page, posted a quote from Dr. Alexandra H. Solomon. And it says, you may have a hard time feeling drawn to an emotionally available person because part of you still believes you need to earn love. Then down in the caption's long, so I won't read it, but there's this one part particularly that stood out to me. And it says, so if you have begun your inner work of healing yourself and understanding the cycles and wounds that form so much of your past, you may find that healthy behaviors can feel like a lack of connection or that something is missing. That stood out to me. We can holler at that in a minute. But where are you with this?
First, I feel like I want to give a disclaimer before we start this conversation. Something that I've kind of had to train myself on is to not take all memes, quotes, videos, TikToks as truth. So I just want to mention that. I think that when you're looking at memes and quotes and things, that you should use the ones that apply and are helpful to your growth.
Correct.
In areas that you're trying to work on and things that are relevant to you, rather than, which I think sometimes people try to use them as, instead of being applying to your life, sometimes I think people try to use them as things that appeal to your opinion, to try to prove yourself right in your feelings, or to say like, oh, well, this says this, so obviously my opinion is right, you know? So I just want to make sure that I point that out before we like go into them, that we have also had that conversation where we don't take everything as truth. A lot of these things, like anybody can make, put letters on a little square, and use that as truth. But for that one, I felt really strongly about it because it applied for me personally to where I'm at. And something that my therapist brought up to me, which I know we both were having a hard week at the same time, so we called each other a lot that week. And we were dealing with a lot of anxiety, and, I appreciate you being there for me at that time. And even though I didn't want you to be in the same place, and I know it was like for different things, I appreciated that you could connect with me on that level and know what I was feeling at the time. But when I talked to my therapist, something that she said to me was, one, you're really bad at, she didn't say you're really bad at, but she said, have you noticed about yourself that you're hesitant to ask for things? You don't want to tell anybody that you need something from them. Have you noticed that about yourself? And I had to really think about it and wonder what that was about. Okay, so like I can go back to that if we get to it, but relevant to that is she mentioned, and what I know about your relationships is that you see somebody needing you as wanting you, and they're not the same thing. You tend to pick people that you can, nurture and take care of, and that you can offer your help to, and that you feel like you can help grow, because that will make them more loyal to you. And that feeling was disgusting to me. It just made me feel like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you purposely want to be with someone or that needed you to be in the relationship instead of just wanted you?
Yeah. Ugh.
So I've been down a road, and that's why I sent that to you. I knew like you would relate to it and know kind of like where I was coming from when I sent it, because I think that I definitely have had to figure out why I also pick emotionally unavailable people who maybe like serve other needs in my life, but not that emotional connectedness that I need. And now I'm getting to a place as a grown woman that I'm acknowledging that that's a need of mine.
Yeah.
And a need from like a person to have like a deep level of connection and trust, and to be able to be vulnerable and not worry that they're going to leave.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I remember that week, and I felt like that was such a huge discovery, and it's uncomfortable as crap, like some of the things I've been thinking about post that week and us having those conversations, and then prior to just realizing or looking at my patterns of what I've chosen, as far as like a romantic interest or partner, whatever, somebody, flesh. Is that they are unavailable. And so I would, when you're in a space where you're like, yeah, because, you're finding memes that kind of coincide or witness to what you're feeling. And when you are trying to climb out of a hole of maybe where bad habits or brokenness is taking you, you're looking for things to validate what you've experienced. But for me, I had to step outside of that and say, okay, but why, Jessica? Like, yeah, it's easy to point the finger here, here, and here, but why? And I had to say to my own self, like, you're maybe not as emotionally available as you think either, sugar. Like, they were emotionally unavailable and whoop, whoop, whoop. But that same pattern, like that earned love, I was getting ready to work on a piece earlier today, like a writing piece, and I titled it For Sale, because a lot of my time has been, how do I sell myself to a person to get them to pick me, right? Like, can you imagine the incessant work you have to do to get someone who has no intention on choosing you anyway to choose you? So like this feeling and how it like kind of trace back, and we talk about the connection between like our choices in adulthood and how they coincide with our childhood and what we experience, etc. And I always want to be I want to be careful about spending too much time in brokenness, you know what I mean, like, because then I feel like you perpetually stay here instead of looking at it as a mode of discovery, like, oh, I'm discovering these things, some things I've never experienced, so maybe it's not by brokenness, it's just discovery, right? Anyway, let's play on words. But looking at my own self and saying, even though this person may have been emotionally unavailable, I chose it, but I also reflect it. And why am I reflecting it? What is that fear connected to? And for me, a lot of it is just being like, I don't want to say a lot of it, but maybe like being misunderstood, rejection, being looked at as weak, like, and I haven't made all the connections or connected all the dots, and maybe I won't, but that pattern of like earning love or selling, I can do this and I can do this for you and I can be this, or even changing who I am foundationally to appeal to someone who I may not even like for real, to get them to pick me. Like, that's, you know what I mean? So dealing with that fundamental fracture and stopping myself when I feel like I'm getting ready to try to sell myself. And maybe some of it, again, my father was in prison. He was a loving guy. He wasn't like I don't have a story where he was like beating on my mom or whatever. He just kept leaving us and going to prison. And then my mom was too busy to be emotionally present. So me, and you guys will probably hear me say this often, I am a very emotional person. So I learned early to stuff my emotions. And so now as an adult woman, I'm learning, like, it's okay. Like, and you can be all of what you are. But having to cut that off early and try to sell myself to someone to get them to choose me so that they can be safe, so that I can lay out who I am. You know what I mean? It's just a vicious cycle, you know?
Sure. I agree with that, and I can relate to it. And I had kind of that same, I don't know, it was like I was stunned when I learned about myself that I wasn't as vulnerable as I thought I was.
Oh my gosh. Because we're like, we cry and we talk.
Yeah.
And we, yep.
And to almost any human that I meet, I'm an open book.
Yep, I will tell you all my business.
I will tell, yes, if someone's like, why didn't this work out for you? Or why did you go to this job? Or what happened to you as a kid that made it, I will talk about all of those things. That's a lot of why we're doing this, is because we're open to sharing in hopes that somebody else might learn for it or relate to it, you know. But I really thought that I was an emotionally vulnerable person. And when I realized by my therapist also telling me that I'm, you know, kind of picking these people because I don't want to be emotionally vulnerable and I don't want people to leave, like, that felt bad. And like you, I'm like, why did I think, I was like, who do you know yourself at all, you know? Why'd you know? But, you know, like, one specific example that happened recently, and I think, like, part of learning is, like, you don't have to fix it all, right, when you find out that there's something about you that you don't like. I think that a lot of it is applying what you've learned to experiences, like you said you're doing, like, when you feel yourself selling yourself. You do it gradually, right? Like, it's not a, like, I gotta fix this right now thing, which is a lot of how I think. So as soon as I did that, and I realized that about myself, I called you, and you were like, stop planning on how you're going to stop yourself from feeling this way, or how you're going to deal with something that might or might not happen later and make you feel rejected. Sit with your feelings right now, and just, like, kind of just sit through them. If you have to cry, which I appreciate. If you know, and then, like, maybe figure out, like, why you feel that way, not any of this other situational stuff.
Because it can be so easy to try to assert your control everywhere else but here. And at the end of the day, like, you're with you all the time. I can shapeshift and morph myself into all these things to get this person to respond the way I want, when they never will anyway, or they may not anyway, or they have to come to their own personal revelation before they do so anyway. Why exhaust all that when I can decide, like, I don't like how I feel. So do I allow this to keep happening in my world, or do I move on? I think that's a scarier question, right? If someone walks away from you, that's easy, right? I can cry, I can be sad. Why did they leave? Woo, woo, woo. But I didn't have to make a decision. I can stay, and then I can try to get them to change. You know, and then I feel like I'm doing work. It's like calisthenics. Like, you know, if I say it like this, if I do this, if I buy this, if I, you know, and you still feel like you're doing something and you're waiting for a return. But if I sit back and say, I don't want this anymore, which means I have to face potential loneliness, you know, pain, them not understanding, doubling back, you know, being firm on my decision today and being like, just kidding, tomorrow. You know, like, all of those things. That's a harder decision to say, I don't want to. But man, the I don't know what the word is I want to use. It feels great because I'm not depending on anyone, but I've created these firm boundaries and this culture in my life that says this is not allowed to cross. And it's not you. It's what I cannot allow in my space.
And it's weird, right? Because I think, too, that once you decide that something isn't good for you like that, like someone who can't be, like, open with you, or somebody that's trying to, like, make you change instead of grow, which there is a difference. Either somebody's trying to change you, or somebody wants to grow with you, and they care about your growth, and it's a back and forth thing. If you're trying to change somebody, it's like, don't dress like that, you look dumb, you know, something, you know, to me, or you know, things that I guess are, like, a little more serious too, could be like trying to change people. But when you notice something about yourself that you know you shouldn't be tolerating, and that doesn't serve you as a person, because you're getting to know yourself better, and you're like, you know what, I actually don't like how this feels. If someone can't be open with me and connected with me and honest with me and be consistent with me, you start to lose interest, which I think is almost like a little like more freeing than having to do anything, because you're just like, ugh, like, you know, just like that like ick feeling when another situation that maybe you've dealt with previously comes up and you're dealing with again. You're just like, ugh, like, no, thank you.
It's sobering, right? It's sobering when you decide, like, oh, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to try to make myself like it. And I don't have to make my... And I think we make those type of decisions, again, from deficits, right? Like, I'll convince myself I like this, or I'm okay with this, because it's meeting a need. And although it's not meeting... Like, it's like being thirsty, and your body really needs water, but you're like, I'm going to drink this orange juice instead, right? Like, your body's like, thanks, kinda. But actually, I need H2O.
Give me that water.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that was a good example or not, but, like, you keep using something that's not necessarily going to satiate the need.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So I've also found, that emotional availability for me has become even harder after my mom passed away. Because in it, like, automatically something in me like shut up, you know, like seized. And I've noticed, we're ending year 5, going into year 6, and I've become more aware, like, there's a part of me that has shut down. So, like, experiencing certain losses, and just who's going to feel that, because your parent naturally feels your certain needs, even if they're not a great parent, or like they have growing to do, or whatever you want to call it. Like, a parent automatically knows. I think you told me a story when your dad just took care of your filter. Like, he just took care of it.
I was gonna mention that because my therapist, again, like, she had said, start to think of, you know, situations where you probably did need something and you didn't ask for it, or try to come up with ways kind of to practice to say, hey, I need this, can you help with this? Okay. And I was like, I hate that idea, but I'll write down things. I probably won't say I need anything to anybody, but I did a couple of times. But I started to notice that part of that was my relationship with my parents, and then part of it was also getting walked out on my first marriage. But something my dad did recently, everybody was over for Easter, and he noticed that the part of my thermostat was missing. And instead of just saying, like, I didn't remember or anything like that, I just didn't want to tell him the truth. So he asked me why that part was missing. I was like, I don't know, I think I had to change the batteries on it. And he was like, nope, that's on the bottom. And I was like, oh, maybe I knocked it off when I was painting. I could have easily just said, I don't remember why. And he's like, well, when's the, like, dad moved, when's the last time you changed your furnace filter? And I was like, I was like, honestly, like, I don't remember. And he's like, so you haven't done it, like, this winter? And I was like, probably not, you know? He didn't say anything else. And then later on, after everyone had went home and after I got the kids to go to bed, I went downstairs and I noticed just, like, the dirty furnace filter sitting there. So my dad went in the crawl space in my basement. My furnace is on its side because, you know, the ceiling is only so high. Crawled in there and changed the furnace filter. Didn't even say anything to me. Never said, hey, like, I changed that for you, you know. And I felt guilty first. I felt guilty. Then I was able to, I guess, talk myself into that, like, that's your dad. He wants to feel like he can still take care of you as an adult. He wants to feel like add value to your life. He wants to help you because he cares about you, because he loves you. But I think that with my parents, especially because I moved out at such a young age, I think they always thought I'd come back, you know. I was 17 and I was damned if I was going to show them that they could be right. I never went back home. There were living situations where I probably should have. I think it probably would have been safer for me. But I never went back home. I really wanted to prove that I could do it and I didn't need anybody. And that was something that I held on to for a really long time.
Pause. Can we talk about proving that I don't need anybody? Where in Sam's Hill did that idea come from? Because I feel like I fostered that thought for a long time. Yeah. I don't need, like, I'm like, yeah, look at me, a woman picking up this couch. Girl, sit down.
I know.
Like, why did you need to feel like you needed to prove that you can do all of these things? Like, that was such a real thing in my life for so long. Like, I can do it. I'm tired now. I don't want to prove crap I still deal with some of the feelings of like being vulnerable or emotional about a thing or having a reaction and feeling like I need someone to talk to, but I'm like, figure it out now, you know, and like not being able to do that, you know. But I lived in that space of like, I can do it.
Yeah. Where does that come from?
Freaking Beyonce and them. I'm a survivor. Like, girl, no.
I've wondered if like maybe that comes from like a change in or it could be a mixture of both, right? Like from what we saw as kids. Like I saw my mom being both of them worked, but my mom still did the house stuff. My mom still did all of the cooking, except for my dad's company casserole, which is the best thing on the planet.
Oh my God, it's so good.
But she and
Can you
then
call your daddy when this is over? I'm just playing.
yeah,
Okay,
right.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll call him today because it's about time. Dad, I need company casserole. So, thinking about them, and then seeing how my parents' relationship ended, and how my mom still is heavily dependent on my dad's help, financially, and you know, just doing like getting her car fixed, stuff like that. I think I didn't ever want to be that. I think it was frustrating to me from a young age, but that didn't start in childhood. So I don't know if it's like a mix of things that we've experienced and culturally that gender roles have kind of shifted. We've probably both seen women that do it all and don't want to have men for anything. And I think like women have just like had to take on so much as far as the household. Now you have a career. So originally like men were providing mostly financially.
Child, take me back to the 1950s. I will cook dinner and raise the
where
kids.
you have no rights. Yeah, perfect. You just wear polka dot dresses and make sure like your pot roast is done. Not that it like wasn't hard for them too, because they also had to push out like way more kids than like our generation does. You know, like it was a lot to take. It's a lot to take care of kids at home. But I guess like I feel like my parents' generation was like the start of like a shift, like in the 80s, where they both were providers now. You know, like men want to provide and protect, women want to nurture. You know what I mean? And we want to feel protected, but women have met in the middle as far as providing, but we need to be taken care of too, like emotionally. And like, I think there's a big gap there as far as like how far men have come emotionally and where we're at emotionally, and like always, you know, anyways. But so I think culturally that's a thing too, where we've seen women gradually do more and more, and we're like, okay, well, this person did that, like I have to do more and more too, right? And I don't know where else it comes from.
For me, some of it was wrapped in, specifically what comes to mind is more of the appealing, the selling, right? Like, if you show you're independent, then you'll appeal to a man.
Where did that come from, too? I'm wondering where that, because I understand that,
because
too.
Where things that you should have learned in the household, I didn't. Like, we didn't talk about certain things. I learned about Jesus. I learned how to wash my tail and clean the house. You know what I mean? Like, and this is no diss to my mom. There were certain, she was, you know, she was tired, whatever. I learned fundamental things. Be polite. You know, I learned etiquette. I don't want to minimize what I learned. But, like, things that I feel like should have helped me or would have helped me emotionally in relationships, or learning relationships and values and things. Like, we didn't actively learn them. I realized I knew them by accident, right? Like, if I made a decision, I'm like, oh, that came from home. My mom didn't sit us down and say, do this and be this, you know? So for me, I only watched her take care of us. So I had to create a value system. So my value system looked like pop cans and pop bottles and trash. And you know what I mean? It was all these little things pieced together. So TV, Eric Jerome Dickey books, you know, like just all of these things that I was trying to piece together to make sense, right? So whatever I guess the thing was at the time. So that was it. And so now at 35, I'm like, okay, what is my if I had children, today, what am I supposed to teach my babies? Like, oh, Jessica, you need to decide what your value system is and be clear on it and not deviate from it. Be flexible, but don't deviate, because you got to teach them something. Like, actively teach them something. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I really can't even say today. It was just like a conglomerate of stuff.
Yeah.
And whatever seemed like it was going to get me what I was after. If I was after a boyfriend, then I'm going to do that. If I want to appeal to the girls or homegirls or whatever makes me look prominent in the moment, right? But I'm realizing I think there's value in too much of anything is not okay. There's value in some things. But I don't think everything should be all or nothing. So.
Yeah. I wonder too if it's like a pride thing. For me, it feels very prideful. Like, you know, I also like don't want to have a need that isn't fulfilled, which I feel like I've run into a lot.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. That dependency, right? If I need it and it's not met, then I'm sad. So what do? Avoid the sadness, baby. I don't need it. I can do it myself. I don't, but here's the thing now, I don't want to do it myself.
Not everything.
No,
you know? Not everything.
Not most stuff.
So it's like overcoming that, you know, where it's like okay to need, and this is very new to me, so I'm not acting like I know all this stuff or how to do it. I'm here just like, this is new to me. And I want to be able to not do everything because I'm afraid of either my need not being met or feeling rejected, that somebody won't meet my need, which I think is a lot of what I have been doing for a long time.
So you learn early that this need may not get met, so you inadvertently become emotionally unavailable, and then you draw another person, like just you guys are just reflecting off each other. Because what if my need doesn't get met? And if I ask and it doesn't, then I'm left with this feeling. But you know what I can do? I can meet your needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned your mom, and I think thinking about my mom, you know, my mom was a very nurturing, affectionate, like I was her world mom, like number one fan mom. But I think in a lot of ways, she really wanted me to be her friend. And I think that made me kind of become like my own adult a lot faster. And then also to learn that her needs were just as important as mine early. Where like I might have been looking for like being consoled in a certain situation. It was a back and forth because like, well, you're hurting, so I'm hurting to see you hurting. And I'm like, well, am I supposed to console you for being, you know, and it sounds silly to say that, but that's really kind of like how it was a lot of times. So I think like that's something I've continued to do for a long time. Like, okay, your feelings should be first. So I'll just keep putting your feelings first, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable by me telling you how I'm feeling. So I'll just not do that.
There was some dynamic of that with my mom, and I didn't realize it until later. She was very much like a disciplinarian, and you know, for a long time we would say, "Love you, Mom." She would say, "You should." Shoot. All right, girl. So I was in my 20s before she started saying it back. I remember one time, this thought has been running through my head all week. I don't know why, but we were going to we were members at a particular church, and I felt like for me I needed to go to another church, and I was terrified to tell my mom. At this time I'm like in my early 20s, so most people my age are like either in college or making their own decisions in life. A lot of my decisions I filtered through my mom, or I didn't tell her at all. Like I was afraid of her response no matter what it was. And so I told my mom what I thought I needed to do, and she was like, now my decision was solely mine. It wasn't like, Mom, I think we should go, or I think you and I should go. It was, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. A lot of my 20s was spent trying to assert my own independence without hurting my mom. So I told her what, I was like, Mom, I feel like I need to even go to this other church. And she says, you're not going to do me like your dad did and drag me all over. And I was like, what, girl? Like, and I was so conflicted because I felt like what she said I was responsible for, but I also knew that I wasn't. And I'm like, how did I get in this role of like your companion and responsible for it? Was I still don't think I resolved the moment to this day.
Yeah.
But it was like that, if I went to my mom about like I remember one time going to her, I sat down and had a list of all these like things that happened, and I wanted to talk through them with her. I had no idea what I was doing because I didn't have all the knowledge I have today, just that I've acquired. And it was like it was this outburst of emotion of, well, it was this, and it was like it was more than I knew I had the capacity to handle in my young 20s. When I'm just trying to resolve some of the things so our relationship can be better. I have no idea what I'm doing, but all of this like blame. So now I'm taking on all this responsibility. I'm feeling guilty, and I'm sorry, and never mind. So I don't have. If something's wrong, if my tire breaks, if something happens, I can't call my dad and say, Dad, can you come? And if I have some type of something, I can't call my mom because it's either going to be like, oh, it'll be fine, figure it out. Well, there's no emotional landing strip. There's no one to come for me, so I do it myself. So then I became, I guess, emotionally unavailable, and I thought I was emotionally available because I tell strangers my business, but I'm not.
Yeah. Which it felt like me. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'll talk to anybody about like their deepest, darkest things, like people, And then to make it more about, I guess, being available to like your own needs instead of just being like available to give information.
Yeah.
And
say that one more time.
I don't know if I can. But so being available to your own needs, like knowing what your needs are, being available to them, and being vulnerable with yourself. Like being vulnerable isn't just with other people, like being open to them, like being open and kind to yourself. Like I've been so hard on myself thinking about it.
Yeah. I think anything that we do starts at home with us, right? Like I can be compassionate with another because I'm compassionate with myself. I can extend kindness, and if I practice that with myself, I'm better at it. If I practice emotional availability and I don't try to avoid me, and I'm like, oh no, I feel things, let me go get some, marijuana up in here, let me go find some booty, let me go drink a little wine, you know what I mean? Like that's what we do, instead of like sitting in it and like appreciating that we are, like we can get through this moment with ourselves, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not putting that on other people. Like, you can tell if somebody's a little closed off emotionally, but sometimes it takes, like, building that. And I feel like if you're not emotionally available yourself and you don't even know it, you're putting all of that on them. Like, okay, just because you said how you feel about this person or about something that happened doesn't mean that you're being vulnerable and available too. Yeah. It just means that you're saying something that bothers you.
So what I feel like one of the biggest things that has like stood out in this conversation, and just thinking back to the conversation we had a few weeks ago, is crap, my brain just froze. Oh, I interrupted you and I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Typical.
Crap.
Typical.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
Whatever.
Was it about like sitting with your...
I don't know. Keep talking. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess, like from where we are, I think being emotionally available to yourself, and I think like a common thing that we keep coming back to in the discussions that we have is like, make it about you.
Yeah.
The more you know yourself and the more that you feel that things aren't fitting to you, you don't have to make somebody into a bad person or like try to diagnose what's wrong with them. like, if something isn't fitting for you, it can just be that.
Yeah.
Like, this does not work
Yes.
for me. In friendships, in relationships, you know, like, whatever that is, family members, if it's not fitting to you,
Mm-hmm.
you can work with them and, you know, explain, you know, how you're feeling and try to, like, grow together, or you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody's just, you know, it's not going to work, especially with relationships, because it's like you can have a family member and work on it forever, right? Because maybe, depends on the situation. Or a friendship, I feel like in all of my friendships, I've grown, you know, a lot with them. Those are people that I choose to grow with. In a relationship, if someone isn't growing at all and it's just you, like, okay, then let them go and, like, you focus on you, you know? And I think a lot of times we're like, oh, well, that person isn't even, like, they're not vulnerable at all. Like, they won't open up, and making it about other people. Like, okay, if that doesn't work for you.
Am I opening up?
Right.
Am I present? Am I, right? Like, if you start with you, you can kind of set the perimeters.
Yeah.
And not perimeters for limitations or like thou shall nots, but the parameters of what the liberties that you can have, you know, like, so yeah, I think putting that emphasis on you, romanticizing home, being with myself. If I set the standard here with me, not like I set the standard, they better not, but if I set the standard with me, then how does that flow out in all my other relationships and friendships and whatever, you know?
Rather than focusing on how to make yourself better for a person and just making yourself better for you so that you feel happy. And I think it's important to remember that if you don't feel safe needing somebody or expressing a need like me, or being vulnerable or emotionally open, even though it might hurt or you might feel rejected, you cannot feel that way about yourself and easily create that same safety for another person.
No.
You know?
Yes, that.
Which I feel like has been really easy to do in certain friendships, but like relationships are like a whole different level.
Yeah.
Like, even us, we've run into things where we're like, okay, I know this is like weird to talk about, but I feel like we need to be accountable with each other. And we still are like growing in that way, you know? And to not apply that same thing to anybody else just seems wild to me.
Yes. If I apply it here, the other day, maybe a couple weeks ago, I found myself saying, "What do you need, Jessica?" Like, that felt so cool. Because I was like wigging out. I don't really remember what I was wigging out over. But I stopped and asked, like, what do you need? Parenting myself in the way that I maybe needed. And I'm not, again, nothing against, they did what they could, they were who they were. But like, being able to say that to me, then I can say that to you. And I'm not asking you because I'm like, oh no, she's not what I'm accustomed to. Let me ask her to secure what I need her to be for me. I'm asking because I genuinely want to know. But I think when we do things out of like that need or that deficit, it's not for the other person. It's like, hey, you're not the temperature that I'm accustomed to you being. I'm uncomfortable with that. How can I fix it so you can meet this need for me? Does that make sense? So, practicing those things with yourself. What do I need right now? I feel like it helps roll over into those other areas, those places, work. All of those things.
Which is hard because I think, and you making me pause in that moment was really helpful and I think you saying to yourself, like, what do you need? Instead of doing other things, like distracting myself is what I usually do. Like, okay, boom, laundry, housework, let me go outside, pull some weeds. Like, there's always like stuff to do for the kids. Like, I usually distract myself from like thinking about the things that are bothering me instead of just sitting with them. One thing that I want to share is that on Friday, we pulled up to Eli's school, and we had dropped Autumn off, and then we drive all the way back to Eli's school. And I pulled up, and I was like, "All right, Eli, ready to get out?" And he didn't answer me, and I turned around, and he was just sobbing. And I was like, "Eli, what's the matter? Like, did you hurt your?" I don't know. I thought sometimes he does crazy stuff. I thought maybe he bit himself. The seatbelt. I don't know. I didn't know what happened. And he was crying, and he said, "I just don't want to leave you, and I just want to stay home today. I don't want to cry at school because I miss you." Now, Eli's not that kid. He loves going to school. He loves, like, he had a stomach bug, like not even a few days, like probably a few days before that, he had a stomach bug overnight. And halfway through the day, he asked me to take him to school because he knew his friends would miss him. He wanted to go to school, and I was like, well, Eli, if you're not feeling good, you stay home to take care of you. It's easy to say that to my kid, right? I said, if you're not feeling good, you stay home for you. You don't go because your friends want you there, and they'll have like a more fun day with you. But anyway, so Friday, when he said that to me, I said, okay, like, welcome to your first mental health day. You're staying home with me today. You know, now I had things to do, so I felt guilty that I couldn't have him the entire day. He ended up going to my mom's like a couple hours before, you know, his dad was going to get him. But it also made me think, like, you don't do this with yourself.
Yeah.
It was easy to see it in my kid and be like, what would I have wanted as a kid? What would I have wanted my parents to do?
Yeah.
And to be like, okay, you feel this way. You know, would I do it if it lasted months? Like no, at some point. But, like, I know that's not typical for him. I knew something was going on with him. He was feeling some type of way. And it might have been that this wasn't my weekend with the kids. Like, and he's never expressed that bothers him. But I wanted to give him what he needed at the time.
Yeah.
And it made me think, like, why don't you do that for you? Like, when's the last time...
You gave yourself what you needed.
Yeah, what you really felt like you needed. Because I won't even let myself consider what it is to figure out what I need. To take the time to say, like, what is this that you're feeling and what would make it better? Not just eating or, you know, having a couple of beers or doing stuff that makes you not think about it, to take your mind off of it, to distract you. Like, what is the core of what you're feeling? And if you don't know, that's okay too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you don't have to drown it with other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not a pro at it, obviously, but I want to get a lot better at it because we have to invest in ourselves.
Yeah. I love this one. So let's do more of checking in with, you know, ourselves. Ask more of self, what do you need? Jessica, what do you need? Claire, what do you need? And I guess I'll challenge all of you all who are listening to do the same, because, like, you're worthy and you're worth it.
And at the end of the day, the only person who you can really help grow, you can inspire other people to grow, but you can only grow yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's who you have.
Gosh,
forever.
your garden, water yourself.
Yes, water yourself.
I love it. Toodaloo.